take care that we should take care that we don't filter what we hear through our own preconceived so many assumptions that we have, or so many beliefs that we have already in our mind and heart. Bhagavad Gita first chapter is helping us to understand how to approach the Bhagavad Gita itself and the Guru. Then in the second chapter, we saw only when Arjuna accepts his weaknesses, does Krishna start speaking. And he speaks all about, begins with, this chapter is also called as the Sankhya Yoga, which means to understand things in the perspective of matter, spirit, so the elements of creation, soul, all of this. And though it's a summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita, the highlight, the focus is definitely on the soul, on the qualities of the soul. And then towards the end, Krishna also speaks about a very important concept of developing spiritual intelligence. Then the third chapter begins with a lot more confusion. In Arjuna saying that, please explain to me why should you're talking about intelligence, but you're asking me to also fight this war. So how do I reconcile? And that's when Krishna begins to speak about, duty. He says, you have to perform your duty. Yes, so we saw all about that in the third chapter. And the essence of that was how one has to work without any expectations, and that is possible when we have this abundance mentality, not the scarcity mentality, right? And this abundance mentality is possible only when we connect ourselves with Krishna, the source of all abundance. Now, so let's begin with, let me share my screen for some pictures for you all to guess what the fourth chapter is all about. Anybody's guess, I'm just saying. Okay, so I share my screen. I hope it's visible. And there you are. Does anybody want to? Yeah. So what does this?
One is the lineage of. Yeah, the first one is the lineage of Bhagavad Gita, how it has been passed from through the disciplic succession.
Right.
And
okay,
how it lost.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, fine. You're talking about the same picture? Yes. Please continue. Please continue. If you're talking about
how it lost its originality over a period of time, how it got contaminated, the transcendental knowledge. Yes. That was the first.
Okay. Yes. Anybody else also would like to guess the other two pictures? What Krishna is talking about here?
Different avatars.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir
correct. The two verses which whole of India knows because of Chopra ji. Yes. Yada yada hi dharmasya and paritranaya sadhanam. So he talks about how he keeps appearing again and again and again. All right. And then this picture on the top.
Janma karma chamedi.
Yes. Janma
Who knows about my birth and the transcendental activities, so they will not have any punarjanma.
Janma karma chame vidyam.
Who understands in tattvata, I mean in reality.
Yes, very nice. That is right. All right. Then I have a few more pictures. It's not the end. Fourth chapter is a very important chapter. Yes. What else can we see here?
Chaturvarnam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagasya tasya kartaram vidya kartaram.
Right. So I can say with all assurance that Shanmukh Prabhu and Rajesh Prabhuji are the most sincere students of Shri Gaur Prabhuji here in this class. Yes, they have all the answers. That's right. So this is Chaturvarnam maya srishtam. Krishna is talking about how he is the origin of all the Varnas. Okay, what more? I can't hear. Somebody did say something.
Hello?
Faintly I can hear you, Harshita Mataji.
It's attaining knowledge through sacrifice.
Yes, Krishna talks about sacrifice, and there is a lot of elaboration on sacrifice in this particular chapter, correct? And we'll see what exactly he tells about it. Yes, what else?
विद्धि प्रणिपातेन
Correct, correct. Tadvidhi pranipatena.
प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्षन्ति ते ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः.
Very nice. Yes. So this is about that, about the guru. And what is this? The
I
last.
think karma, akarma, vikarma.
Correct. The most important concept that's covered here, an important concept is about karma, karma, and vikarma. Right? So yeah, that is all. The fourth chapter is talking about all of this chain of knowledge, Krishna's appearance, source of varnas, etc. So let's discuss each of these and look at all the salient concept that we have been doing for all chapters. It's right that Krishna begins this particular chapter catching on from the third chapter about how he's telling Arjuna. He talks about doing performing one's duty without any expectations, and then when Arjuna asks about why do people anyways do what they're not supposed to be doing, then Krishna explains about lust, he explains about the coverings of lust, all that. And then the fourth chapter begins with Krishna himself speaking, saying that, oh, I've already delivered this knowledge to sun god. Yes, and then sun god, he in turn has spoken it to Manu, Manu to Ikshvaku, all this he tells. Immediately Arjuna gets a doubt, right? Arjuna gets a doubt saying that how is it possible? Krishna, sun god, is very much senior to us and you and I are the same age. We are friends. So how is it possible that you spoke to sun god about Bhagavad Gita? Now begins a very important, aspect or the face of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna begins to distinguish between him and Arjuna. He says, hold on, Arjuna, you and I are pretty different. In this sense, he begins with explaining the very how does he answer? He says, well, you and I have taken many, many births in that sense, but you don't remember any of them. I remember all of them. That's the difference. That's the first difference, he says. And the second difference, that by knowing he's a devotee, Arjuna is a devotee, but say no, if my activities and my birth and all that is waste, and nobody wants to hear that, and nothing is going to happen out of it. But when we listen to Krishna's birth, janma, karma, and his activities, and understand that they are divine, transcendental, divyam, evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. Once he quits his body, he is not going to come back. Yes, but in our case, it's opposite. If you meditate upon somebody so much, contemplate upon somebody so much, then you're sure to take birth again. Yes, very close to that person or something like that. So that is the difference between Krishna and us. Krishna is explaining this, a very, very important key concept here. And then he also goes on to explain how he is the source of all the varnas. Yes, he says, so I'm going to the chapter also, just so I don't miss out anything. Right. So then he says, I keep appearing again, yada yada hi dharmasya, he says, and also why I appear, in order to protect the sadhus, in order to destroy the demons, all that he says. And that's the difference between you and me. But who can understand this? What does he say about that? Who can understand this? Does anybody remember? What does he say about that?
Ita raga bhaya krodha.
Correct. He says one who is free from raga, bhaya, krodha. Yes, vita means freed from raga, bhaya, krodha, attachment, fear, and anger. These three things, if one is freed from, only then one can understand this. And doesn't matter whatever they understand, however they understand, I reciprocate as per their understanding, Krishna says, isn't it? So he says, yetha mam prapadyante tam sathaiva bhajamyaham. So whatever their level of understanding is, how they perceive me, that's how I reciprocate. Some of them want to turn to devatas, devi devatas, to fulfill their desires, and I say, all right, you let your faith become strong there. Correct? So that's how Krishna is reciprocating with each one of us. What, according to what our what we want, or what our desires are, how we want to look at Krishna, how much we want to surrender to Krishna. But Krishna, he has absolutely, though he has created all of these varnas and ashramas and all that, he says that I am beyond all this. Nothing is going to affect me, but you must do your duty. And this chapter is called as the transcendental knowledge. He said, I am beyond all that, but you must do your duty. How? By keeping this transcendental knowledge in mind. This is what he's saying. That's why this chapter is called as the transcendental knowledge. And what is that transcendental knowledge he's talking about? There he begins with what is action, inaction, and capricious action. Right? Karma, karma, and vikarma. And this karma, Krishna says a very important, he says, gahano karmana gati, means karma is very difficult to understand, very, very difficult to understand. But the law of karma, and I can tell a very small short story. Dhritarashtra, after the war, he was extremely depressed, obviously. He has lost 100 sons, and he goes to Krishna and he says, what is this? I lost so many sons. What have I done? And I actually tried to find what I have done by meditating or contemplating and going back into 50 of my lives. Those people had that kind of a power. At least Dhritarashtra says he has in the Mahabharata. He says, I tried to look at 50 births and I was trying to figure out what have I done for this kind of a reaction. And I didn't find anything, Krishna. What is it? So Krishna says, okay, go back just one more. And you can see that you were a hunter and you have killed, you were a hunter and you wanted to kill a bird, and somehow or the other the bird flew away and you were so frustrated that you killed all its eggs, and that is why you have to lose all your children. So when Dhritarashtra heard this, he said, okay, fine, but why 50 birds? Why did I have to wait for 50 birds to suffer? So Krishna says, well, to get 100 sons, you need to accumulate piety. To get 100 children is not easy. Yes, you need piety for that. So you were accumulating the credit, all these births. So you get those 100 sons. But then you had to also suffer the reaction of what you did. So in this way, ghana karmano gati is very important. And then Krishna explains how one has to avoid all capricious action or all unauthorized actions. Yes, whatever is not authorized, one has to avoid. One has to obviously be away from. And whatever inaction is, that is what he starts explaining. What is inaction? Inaction to different people means different things. Yes, some may want to just renounce everything. But is that inaction? Krishna goes on explaining this concept very nicely with the help of sacrifice. He says everybody has to perform this sacrifice, and for different people it means different things. Yes, and there we see how Krishna is talking about sacrifice, what it means for householders, what it means for a brahmachari, what it means for other sannyasis, what does it mean? In this way, he goes on explaining this concept of sacrifice. But what is to be understood is the essence of sacrifice is that we are doing something so selfless. Whatever we are doing, it need not be the archaic ritual of fire sacrifice, which is only a symbolic representation of something that we want to give into, something we want to give into for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of transcendental knowledge. Right? And this explanation Krishna gives quite vividly. And then Krishna talks about the need to understand this transcendental knowledge from a guru who will destroy all your doubts. Because Arjuna started with a doubt, and Krishna said, this doubt, these doubts are very dangerous in our hearts. Yes, but they will come, no problem. But one has to actually clarify those doubts, and which is what Arjuna is showing as an example. He doesn't leave any opportunity to ask a question, right? But Krishna says this transcendental knowledge you can get only through a guru who will destroy all these doubts. And about what? About the position of Krishna, about what is in action. Now, we will look at the salient concept that comes here. Very important salient concept. Though we know the role of Guru is highlighted in this 4th chapter. Let's discuss a little bit more on this particular verse, which is in the 4th chapter. It says, having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never again fall into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Okay, so let us look at this particular verse, what Krishna is saying. Now, the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada immediately begins with saying, so the previous verse, the 4.34 is talking about Tat Viddhi Pranipatena, the need to accept a guru. And this particular verse is talking about a peculiar quality of transcendental knowledge, a very unique quality of transcendental knowledge. What is that quality? That once you get this knowledge, you will not forget it. You will not fall back into illusion. If in the material world, the material knowledge that we have, it's easy to forget. So many things that we studied in school, how many of us remember? Nothing, right? And of course, it takes some time, you will maybe, but in spiritual life, in transcendental knowledge, this is a very unique characteristic of transcendental knowledge that Krishna is saying you will never fall into such illusion. So we'll talk about a few things here. One is what is this kind of a knowledge that will not push us back into illusion? What is illusion itself? All these things we will talk about. So the 4.34, which is talking about the need to accept a guru. It says this knowledge you will get from a guru, right? And it says two things about the guru. Tat viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So the guru has these two attributes. He is a jnani and he is also a tattvadarshi. What does it mean? A jnani means one who has knowledge, and a tattvadarshi means, so knowledge about what? Knowledge about the scriptures. He has scriptural knowledge. And what is tattvadarshi? This knowledge is not just theoretical. It is a realized knowledge. Right? These are the two attributes of guru. And what is that knowledge? Bahunam janmanamante jnanaman mam prapadyate vasudevaha sarvamiti samhata. Right? Vasudeva sarvamiti. That knowledge this guru has. And he has that knowledge in a realized sense. That's fine. But how does one acquire knowledge from such a guru? Very clearly, we know there are three things that I mentioned here. So the prime quality that's underlying these three activities, pranipatena, pariprashnena, and sevaya. Three things are mentioned, right? What is the underlying quality between, for all these three activities? Humility. Humility begins with pranipata, which means humility of the body. Yes, when you begin to offer pranipata or pranam, as soon as that's the first way of showing your humility. And this, of course, at the bodily platform, when you do this, it's simple. It's not so difficult. For some, it is difficult initially. And for children, it is even more difficult. They keep telling pranam, pranam, give pranam, give pranam. So this is important. Why? Because it is an expression of humility. But this expression can be faked very easily. This is still not humility because we can fake it. The next level of humility is pariprashna, which is humility through your speech. Yes, so pariprashna is what? How does one ask questions? We ask questions in a way which is not to expose somebody or to challenge somebody, but genuinely inquiring, and that will be considered as really humble or with humility that question, if you're open to transforming yourself when you get the answer. You get the point? So the most important point is when we are willing to transform ourselves after getting the answer, that means that we have asked this question in all humility. That's humility of our speech. But the last bit, sevaya, is important because it is reflecting the humility of mind, the most difficult part. Because humility of the questions of the speech can also be faked. You may ask questions, but until and unless you begin with seva, that's why he uses sevaya, it doesn't mean that you have completely surrendered through your mind also. So these three important qualifications, humility of the body, mind, body, speech and mind, are necessary qualifications to obtain this knowledge. Then only it is knowledge. And this is something which we should understand very clearly, that knowledge means humility. You know, in Sanskrit or in the Shastras, Vidya Vinaya is a compound word. You know, it's a compound, they go together. Like joy, happiness and joy, like that, compound words. So Vidya Vinaya, Vinaya means what? Humility. If we have genuine knowledge, then we will definitely be humble. The humility is very natural that goes with it. So when we have this kind of a knowledge, what happens? Krishna is saying that you will never fall again into illusion. So let us understand what is this illusion Krishna is talking about. So as human beings, all of us as spirit souls, as human beings, let me say human beings, we have propensities, three propensities, very strong. What are these three propensities? They are Sat, Chit, Anand. What does it mean? Sat means I have a propensity to exist. That's the first one. I have the propensity to exist. I also have a propensity to know. Yes, everybody wants to, as a child, so many questions they have. Why? Because they have the propensity to know. That is Chit. And Anand, I have a propensity to be happy. I want to be happy. Simple. Sat, Chit, Anand. But the problem with us is that we want to realize these propensities in matter. And that's the illusion. Right? We want to realize these propensities of Sat, Chit, Anand in matter. So what happens in Sat? We want to exist on the bodily level. And that is why what happens? We want to take anti-aging pills and we don't want to look old. Yes, we don't want to grow old. That's one way. And the other way is also a very subtle way. A very strong desire that mostly Indians especially have is to have progeny, isn't it? Children. Because why? That's the way we can exist. Khandan. Yes, we have this lineage to develop our lineage. Why? We are existing. We are trying to fulfill or realize this propensity to exist through expanding. And expanding in terms of lineage, expanding in terms of what I acquire, the property I acquire. So no matter what I have, how much I get, I'm not satisfied. I still continue to work because I still want to expand. What in case? And I want to know, how do I do this best? The propensity to know is only limited to this. How do I exist? And how do I continue to exist and expand? Yes, and I try to find happiness through only this. Through whatever is me and mine, I try to find so much happiness. And this is the illusion. So this verse, Krishna is saying that the moment you get this knowledge, this is transformed. This propensity, Sat Chit Anand, is transformed from matter to spirit. Simple. So the moment we understand that, what happens? Now our propensity, Sat, is to exist eternally as spirit soul. Yes, or I want to know. What do I want to know now? Who am I? What is my relationship with Krishna? That's my propensity to know. And then Anand, I am blissful now. Now that I know that I'm connected with the source of all happiness, I develop bliss. Right? So once this kind of an illusion is shattered with transcendental knowledge. Krishna says that you will never fall again there. And this is a big promise Krishna is giving. And it's true. No, we may try many times. Yeah, we sometimes forget and we still try to find joy here. But again and again and again, we get frustrated. Simply to come back to the understanding that no, there is no way that I can actually get any kind of happiness here with matter. And that's why the role of Guru is very, very important. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, he explains, one of the acharyas of Gaudiya Sampradaya, he explains this, the role of Guru very beautifully with an example. He says, so we have, these small pools of water, they all join into the river, right? And the river joins to the, flows into the sea. But these small bodies of water, the degree to which or the extent to which they can actually go and join the river depends on what? On their force. Yes, on how strongly they can flow, or also how many obstacles are there or not there. Correct? So most often what happens, you find these small pools of muddy water. Why? Because there are so many stones, mud, everything accumulated, doesn't have any force. That's our situation. Because we don't have a force, because we have so many obstacles, we don't flow. But what's the role of Guru? He says, it's like an autumn shower. A shower of rain comes, chush, and the pool gets washed and joins, gets a force, gets cleared up, and it can join the river. That's the role of Guru. And with that, we can actually obtain real knowledge. So that was the 4th chapter. Does anybody have any question or a comment?
Mataji, just want to highlight that while we went through the chapter 4, I never touched upon this verse in so much detail and so many concepts. So somehow Krishna's arrangement through you, and you have really explained some of the important, very important concepts, around this verse, which are very helpful. And fortunately, this morning also we had some, guest lecturer today, this morning, amongst the same audience. And we also spoke about the role of Guru and, how initiation is so important, what needs to be done, how. So I think so it's like Krishna's arrangement through you, and it was, so many important points you brought up. So it's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, importance of initiation. True. Okay, anybody else has anything to say? We'll move on to the next chapter. Yes.
The last one is Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Vidya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini. Sunichaiva Sopakecha Pandita Samadarsina.
Yes.
And the left one is
No, I don't need
It's
okay. I mean,
Padma Patra Vimambasa. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You can also just mention the meaning of what you can see.
Okay, so once you are in consciousness, nothing, the metal, you will not be absorbed into metal things. You will do the things, but you will not be engrossed in it.
Right. Be attached. Correct. Will be there in this world, yet not there. Correct. Then the first slide.
Meditation.
Renunciation or working with detachment.
That's right. So that is the very first question that Arjuna is asking. That what is better, renunciation or working? What should we do? You're asking me to fight. It starts with confusion, more confusion, and this particular slide picture. Nobody, huh? What happens when there is sunshine?
Darkness is ignorance is gone.
Yeah, that's right. So when there is sunshine, then you can see things as they are, right? So that is the fifth chapter, which is talking about this. It's highlighting more about the transcendental knowledge. Okay, I think there are few more.
भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिं रक्षति. Peace formula.
The peace formula is the last verse. That's right. And
Only engineers can understand this through formula. This is bias of the presenter.
you know, I don't even know who's an engineer, who's what. Okay. All right. So this one, there's just one slide left, and it says itself. It's self-explanatory. So this comes in the fifth chapter where Krishna says that this kind of a person, he doesn't look for happiness anywhere else. Yes, outside of himself, he doesn't look for happiness. Yahi samsparsha bhoga. Yes. So
Yeah.
okay. So let's discuss the fifth chapter and some of the salient concepts therein. It begins with more confusion. Krishna is Arjuna is saying that this verse, Krishna Arjuna, that he expresses his confusion is because of a verse in the fourth chapter where Krishna uses sannyasa karma. So he's talking about renunciation on the one side, and he's talking about fighting this war. So Arjuna wants to know for sure what it is. Please tell me clearly which one is better. And Krishna tells both are okay. Renounce also okay. But very clearly, he says, but then, working for me in devotional service is better. He says, both are okay. He begins with that. But working in devotional service is better. And this chapter, I won't go so much in detail because this chapter is a further elaboration on inaction. Because Arjuna is confused about inaction. So Krishna is very, very elaborately describing inaction here. Yeah, how one has to perform his duty with what consciousness, how that knowledge that I have described is going to help you perform your duty in the right consciousness, yes, as an offering unto me. So all the sacrifice that I described in the fourth chapter, it only simply means that now you have to keep me in the center. So there, yeah. So it says he's talking about this person who is steadily devoted. This word he uses here in the 12th verse, he's saying the steadily devoted soul. Very important words for us in the sense. So, in the Bhagavatam, there is a very beautiful definition of dharma. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Says that is dharma. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje, which is devotional service to the Lord. But how should that devotional service be? Ahaituki and apratihata. Yes, ahaituki means which is not with any motives, with any desire for this, that, and apratihata, which means uninterrupted. Uninterrupted means steady. So here Krishna is also talking about the same, how important it is to be steady in our devotions. Yes, so we are performing or doing something, few activities, whatever those activities, keep them steady. This is what is being mentioned. Keep them steady, keep them constant. Don't don't do one one thing on one day and the other thing on the other day. Slowly and steadily increase your practices. But when we do this, then this kind of a person begins to develop detachment. Yes, doing his duty, but detached. And that is why he talks about this, this drop of water on a lotus leaf. Yes, which is the lotus leaf doesn't get wet. The water is there. So similarly, we don't get absorbed, like you said very rightly. We don't get absorbed, but we are still performing our duties, not renounced them. We do them, but in the right consciousness. And when we continue to do this, this kind of a person develops equal vision, right? And that is what transcendental knowledge should bring us. When knowledge with humility is there, then we are able to look at everybody samadarshina, look at everybody with equal vision. Then we don't see, here is somebody I can exploit, here is somebody I can enjoy with, here is somebody I can put down, here is, you don't look at it that way anymore. You're looking at everybody as parts and parcels of Krishna. And it was with this mood that Srila Prabhupada could actually transform the hearts of the hippies. He didn't look at them as, hippies, as completely lost people, men, women, whoever. He looked at them as spirit souls who need to be brought back to their original position. Right? That is a very difficult stage to attain. And that is again attainable only through steady practice. When you don't look at people, anybody, with a sense of what will I get. And when we do this, it's kind of a happiness that we develop within. Then we don't need externally to, so many things to be happy. We are happy within ourselves because we know what um, we can look from above and we know what is the role. And I was just trying to recollect, I had a very interesting, never mind, when I'll remember, I'll let you know. So, yes, so this kind of a person doesn't take pleasure in of things in this world, because he knows or she knows that this has a beginning and this has an end. And sometimes we forget, many times we forget. We still begin, right? But Krishna very kindly gives us frustrations in between, so that we know that, okay, better to stop than to continue, right? So then this steady devotion helps us to go to the situation, go to this position, and come to the conclusion which Krishna talks about, the peace formula. Yes, and peace formula, where he talks about bhoktaram yadnitapasam, is so important, that happiness is coming from this peace. Yes, there is no happiness without peace. And what is that peace formula Krishna saying? I am the enjoyer. I am the proprietor. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. I am the proprietor. But I am a friend also. And that is very reassuring. Right? Imagine somebody is telling, I am the owner, I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer. If you like, get lost. But he says, no, I am your friend. I am your well-wisher. And that is what is reassuring. Correct? So when we remember this, then we will continue to be always happy. A salient point that I got from this particular chapter was this. Let's see how. I heard this very nice about this last verse. Bhoktaram yadnitapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. What happens? We have problem when we become the enjoyers. We know, yes, when we want to enjoy everything. Or we have a problem when we become the proprietor of everything, controller of everything. But what is wrong if we become everybody's friend? Nothing wrong. No? What is wrong in becoming everybody's friend? And this is exactly what social service is all about. They want to do good for everybody. Everybody's friend. I'm everybody's friend. And I want to do good. But what is wrong there? It's good. To be, devotees have no enemies. Ajata Shatru. Devotees they become lovable anyways. Bhagavatam Krishna says this so beautifully. The devotees are anyway lovable. But that's not here we are talking about who? We're talking about those people who don't keep Krishna in the center and they want to become everybody's friend. what happens the moment somebody says something, they don't appreciate their friendship, then what happens? We get frustrated. Yeah, because we have done social service, we have done work for them in all with all sacrifice, but we have never shown them that Krishna is actually your true friend. Then it is lost. Then we get frustrated. I was telling this example to somebody that even as parents, we bring up our children. We do so much for our children, sacrifice this, that. Especially, I know young parents, they sacrifice their sleep, they sacrifice mothers, they sacrifice their eating also so much. All that is there. And then when the children grow up, they may slam the door on your face. And then you might say that, Arey, I did so much for you. And the child might turn around and say, who asked you to do? Yes. But if you keep Krishna in the center and say, Krishna, I did this for you, Krishna will not say, who asked you to do? Krishna say, thank you. Krishna asks you to do this. Children will not ask. You are not doing it for them in that sense. You're doing it for Krishna. So whatever sacrifice we are doing, remember, if we keep it in this sense that I'm doing it for Krishna in the center, then we're not frustrated because I anyway did it. I did it for Krishna. I wanted to please Krishna and I did it. Right? Similarly, social service also, if we do it like Ranti Deva did, yes, the big king in Bhagavatam who sacrificed so much, everything, he has so much tolerance. But because Krishna was in the center, then that sacrifice becomes glorious. Right? But otherwise, this kind of a social service without Krishna in the center, trying to make everybody Surodha, thinking that we are the Surodha of everybody, is actually selfish. Does anybody have a comment, question, or anything for this chapter?
So the person who does such social service definitely will accumulate some punya, but it has no sense. The purpose of life, the real purpose of human life is not served. Is that true, Mataji?
That's right. Accumulate some punya, all right, but also we have to understand that the law of karma is working very strong, right? Because we don't have Krishna in the center, so we have surrendered ourselves to the law of karma. The degree to which we surrender to Krishna, to that degree the law of karma doesn't work for us.
Yes.
Correct? So that's a danger. So you might have the best of the intentions, but you might have to be born as somebody who's on the streets, their child or something, because they have to repay back the love that you gave them.
Yes, that's true. So it will cause bondage. That's what will happen. Even though you're doing a lot of pious activities.
That doesn't mean that we become hard-hearted, right?
Yes,
It's not the point. There is a careful balance there, and that's why just keep Krishna in the center and do it as naturally as it comes. Yes, when you see a beggar, you obviously feel compassionate, and there's no harm, but you have to help the person in the right spirit of Krishna consciousness. Okay. So should we move on to the 6th chapter? Okay, so this is what it is. There is no mystery here in the 6th chapter. It's as clear as
friend and enemy.
yeah, right. Find is our friend or enemy. Thank you. And so I'm going to stop sharing now because there is nothing, though there is a salient concept that I will have, but we will talk about this particular verse in proper, in that sense. Sequentially, we will go through the chapter and see what it has in store for us. So yes, in the 5th chapter, now Krishna has spoken about developing the Samadarshi. Yes, and it is a difficult state to attain. And this he begins with saying that possible through meditation. Why? Because only when you meditate, in the sense you put a pause, you say that full stop. Let me stop for some time and think and introspect and observe. That's when you begin to look at yourself beyond this body, right? That's so to attain the Samadarshi level is difficult, and Dhyana Yoga is beginning with the first 2 verses talking about Nishkama Karma Yoga. So he says, it's good to do your work without any expectations. He begins with that. And then he tells Nishkama Karma Yoga is very difficult for ordinary people, and it has to begin with some kind of practices. Practices as in bodily practices. Yes, either you sit in some kind of a posture, you deep breathe, all that. And that is Ashtanga Yoga, which Krishna is describing in verses, the next few verses. Next two verses especially, he talks about the two levels of Ashtanga Yoga. Jesus it begins the beginning stage. He talks about as Yoga Ruksha, where and then he talks about Yoga Rudha, Yoga Ruksha and Yoga Rudha, Yoga Ruruksha and Yoga Rudha, which is the advanced stage. So this is in the beginning stage. You just have to cultivate some kind of detachment, perform your duty, and but then simultaneously you also practice Ashtanga Yoga. Yes, where you are sitting in some asana or whatever. This leads to gradually purify your heart. And when your heart is gradually purified, you will go to the advanced stage of practicing Ashtanga Yoga. And the next few verses, Krishna talks the importance of mind control and detachment. So when he says, so when you are doing this, it's very important to keep your mind under control. Yes, not focus here or there, but just keep it on the asana that you're doing. If it is your breath, then you focus on your breath. And here he talks about how your mind can be a friend or the enemy. Yes, he says, control it, Arjuna, and make it your friend. Yeah, and then Prabhupada explains that as long as the mind is not one's friend, then nothing possibly, there is nothing possibly good that can happen. In the sense, all these negativities that we are trying to get rid of, the anger and the greed and the lust and the illusion, all that we spoke about, it's impossible. Yes, only one who is able to do this, Ashtanga Yoga, with a focused mind, he will probably able to rise above this and say, I'm happiness, distress, everything is fine for me, all that. And he also describes how does one sit, what position to take, where one should sit, what kind of mat should one spread on the floor, all that, so many things. And the process of meditation also. And one very crucial verse he talks about is regulation. He says not to eat too much, not to sleep too much or too less, not to eat, sleep too much, too less, eat too much, too less. No, none of that. So here, this is especially good for those people who are maybe into too much of meat eating or bad habits or, nightlife, all that. So here, Prabhupada, or rather Krishna, is talking about regulation. Important step towards attaining this transcendental knowledge. And he says, finally, when a person keeps doing this, he or she may be able to see Paramatma in the heart. That's the success. That's the vision. And then once he is able to do that, he's also able to see Paramatma in everybody's heart. That's what we discussed, Pandita Samadarshina. But after hearing all this, Arjuna says, it's not possible. This is so difficult. What are you saying, Krishna? My mind is like wind. I cannot control it. And all of you have heard, that Arjuna was a warrior and this, that, and he can't control. What can we control? True, we can't control, right? So he says, okay, but what happens if he fails? It's difficult to control. What is the destination of somebody who will fail? Then Krishna says, don't worry. He's already said this in the second chapter, which is a summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. He says, Niha Vikramanashosti Pratyavayo na vidyate Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Yes, there is no loss or diminution on this path. And Krishna is now again telling the same thing. Yeah, if there is an unsuccessful yogi, he will come back, but he will continue. And how will he come back? So he may either take birth in a very aristocratic family, yeah, very wealthy and kind of royal, all that, or he may be born in a devotee family or in a family which already knows the value of spiritual life, where you can immediately start, right? So some people may fall after short yoga practice, some people may fall after long yoga practice. Short yoga practice, you've done that much, so you'll take birth in a very aristocratic family, also where you have a lot more opportunity, yes, to take to spiritual life. But long yoga practice, you may be born in in families which will immediately take you to Krishna. And that's why being born in devotee families is so important, and that's why for parents it's so important to always remind or give that to their children, right? And okay, I'm not talking about that. So
Mataji, one question.
yes.
So in that two cases, what you have differentiated,
Mm,
who just started the spiritual practice and then due to some reason he fall down.
mm,
So there Krishna said that you will be enjoying your life, his life in some heavenly planets, and then take a birth in some Brahmana family or something.
mm,
Right?
mm.
And
Yeah,
that means he's in the other case, yeah, I think he will take birth in the transcendentalist family.
correct.
Right. So that means, I mean, if we do the more spiritual practice and follow all the Krishna consciousness throughout intensely,
Mm,
then our progression towards our human life will be faster. In another case, like it is taking so many years, like so
yeah,
many
and
thousands.
it's a big risk also.
Yeah.
Who knows what obstacle will come, right? Who knows how
Yes.
many more stones we will accumulate in our pool of water? So hard. Yes, true. That's right. Okay, so the sixth chapter, it concludes with Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yogam same yuktatamam. Yes, so it says, but there are all these yogis, but the one who Shraddhavan bhajate yogam. Very clearly, Krishna is giving the message in the Bhagavad Gita. Shraddhavan bhajate yogam. Yes, the one who worships me with devotion. He is most dear to me. So, what is the salient uh, mm, topic of this particular chapter? Oh, I will. This is all done. This particular verse. This is very important. The Krishna is describing so much about the yogi, different asanas, this, that, everything. But he says such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the super soul, knowing that I and the super soul are one, remain always in me in all circumstances. Why is this important? And what do we mean by why do we bring out this particular aspect in the sixth chapter? Is this so? Krishna is describing to Arjuna different practices, asanas, all that, but he says uh, the goal is me. Such a person will always remain in me. Uh, the goal of any of these activities Krishna describes, none of the asanas are for any health purpose. Yes, somebody wants to lose weight, somebody wants to get rid of constipation, somebody wants to get rid of digestion problems. So many we have, all of us. And yoga, that bodily, all that, what we are doing, that's on the one level we are doing it for these benefits. But Krishna is describing Ashtanga Yoga. The goal is what? The goal is to this remain always in me in all circumstances. So, what Krishna wants is only love. And this is a very important concept that I heard so beautifully about the sixth chapter, that no matter what we are doing, finally Krishna is only hankering for love. His entire Leela in the Bhagavatam that is described, time and again he's only pointing out or driving home this one point. Yes, I heard that when Krishna was born, right from his birth, he was born in Mathura. He could have finished Kamsa there. It's not so difficult for him. Yes, um, Krishna had killed Putana when he was just 6 days old. So big deal killing Kamsa 6 days earlier. No, he didn't gain any big strength in 6 days. So, but what would have been the outcome? Kamsa over finished, Bhagavatam is concluded there. Krishna's entire purpose of appearance is driving home this point as to how he is hankering for all that love that he has in Vrindavan. Yes, this this supreme Lord supposedly is actually hankering for his mother's love, mother's milk. He cries, he gets scared of her. He's hankering for his friends. It was so beautiful. I heard this such a beautiful story, and I'll stop with that. This is very recently we celebrated Holi, so it was Holi in Vrindavan, and all of Krishna's friends, they go to Nanda Baba's palace and they say, "Hey, Kana, come down." And Kana is hiding. He doesn't want to go out. All his friends have brought so many colors and they want to, and Holi in Vrindavan is so crazy. So they are calling him out and he doesn't want to go. And he tells his mother, Maya, don't tell him here. And he's hiding under the bed. He says, don't tell him here. Then mother says, but why Kana? Your friends are here. Go. How can I lie? He says, please tell them I'm not here. So Yashoda goes out, kind of a balcony, and she says, Kana is not here, and she smiles. And all the friends, they know. They say, no, Maya, no, how can it be possible? So Madhumangal, Krishna's friend, who's a little plump, he loves to eat. And he says, okay, let me go and check. I'll come inside and check. So Yashoda Mai smiles, come check. So Madhumangal goes inside to check if Krishna is there. And he sees, there's Krishna hiding. And says, hey, Kana, come out. And Kana says, hey, Madhumangal, don't do that. I'll give you lots of sweets to eat. See, today Maya has made so many sweets. Here. And the Madhumangal is his weakness. Sweets are his weakness. So he says, okay. And he nicely swallows all of that. And he gulps it all down. And then he says, okay, I'm going. And he goes out, still wiping his mouth. And he goes down and he says, Kana is not there. And all his friends, they scream loudly, says, attack, and they all jump into Nanda Baba's palace. This is what Kana wants. Yes, this is what he wants. He wants only love. He wants the friendship of his, his devotees. He is looking for that. He's looking for his mother's love. He's looking for all the unimaginable love with which our hearts can melt. Right, our steel-like hearts can melt. So this Ashtanga yoga and all that will make our hearts only more sometimes very, very, very steel-like, very cold, right? But the conclusion is Jiva Goswami, he says so beautifully that when I heard about Hari, nothing happened to me. Nothing happened to my heart. When they told, Hari is like this, Hari is like that, I said, so what? Can I eat him? Nothing happened to me. Then they said, no, says Yashoda, look at the devotees. Then also nothing happened to me. When I heard about the devotees, nothing happened. But when I heard about the interactions between Krishna and his devotees, that's when my heart melted, right? And that's about Srimad Bhagavatam. When we hear Srimad Bhagavatam and we hear all that Krishna has to do with his devotees, that's when our heart melts. That's the love that Krishna is hankering for. That's the 6th chapter conclusion. Thank you very much. If you have any comments, questions, please ask.
Mataji, I have one question.
Yes.
When I was just trying to read the purport, especially for the beginner of us, for the beginner in Ashtanga Yogi, who is practicing Ashtanga Yogi, he said that fruitive work is, they have to still continue the fruitive work like that which mentioned. And then in advanced stage, I think in Dhyana and Samadhi, so since the mind is fully under control, so and there is a complete concentration, so they will focus on Paramatma and meditate. So in the purport, it is mentioned that all these 4 practices, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, they are mentioned as fruitive work. So that means there is some action involved on bodily platform. Is that the reason it was mentioned as fruitive work? I was thinking that it was Nishkama Karma Yoga or something. Understanding is that for the beginners, still they have to continue Nishkama Karma Yoga. And
they have to continue in the sense you're saying. So the question is whether they have to be like this. With the
no, that are we quantifying? In the purport, whatever mentioned in the meaning and purport, in purport, it's mentioned that these 4 practices, the
Hmm.
beginning practices, they are all in the bodily platform. It's quantified as fruitative work.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
That's true. It is on the bodily platform because Prabhupada mentions that they're still not free from desires. Even a person, even a yogi who wants to, um, who's focusing on the Brahman, he is not free of desire, selfish desire. He is desiring liberation because he wants to get rid of material problems. But that's not what we're doing bhakti for. Yes,
Yes. Yes.
we heard this ahaituki. Yes, bhakti is defined as ahaituki. So ahaituki means without any motive, and that is inclusive of not having the motive of being free from all troubles, problems, liberated like that.
So the karma karana muchyate means it's fruitive work, right? In the verse.
Yes. Anything else?
This is story of Madhu Mangal and Krishna is from which? Is it like made up, or is it from some scripture?
No, I don't make up stories. That is going to be an offense. That I hear Indravimda Maharaj tells a lot of stories in Vrindavan Leela. He tells a lot of stories. Sachinandan Maharaj also
Do you know the reference?
of this particular story.
Yeah.
I'll have to hear that class again to get to the reference.
Because we can speak on this, right?
Of course, because I've heard it from very authentic sources.
Right. Yeah.
And there are many such. Indravimda
That
Maharaj.
helps. That helps. These things really help us. That thing that what Jeev Goswami said, that Krishna individual, right, devotees individual, but when you see the interaction, that is what really attracts you. And when you glorified Bhagavatam, like this is the right time, because probably from Krishna willing, from next month we'll be starting on Bhagavatam. So yeah, everyone is looking forward to it, and yeah, it's going to be a nice journey. Yeah.
So Mataji, one last question. So the way Krishna reciprocates with his devotees is what and maybe inculcate a lot of devotion in the people who are practicing the devotion in the early stage. Is it because they will, as they keep on hearing and reading, they will build up the mentality of that devotee who was actually interacting with Krishna?
Very nice question. Actually, what is Shraddha? Shraddha, as we understand, is faith, right? But Shraddha is understood as appreciation. Appreciation of for a certain devotee. Appreciation for a certain devotee develops trust. When you begin to see that devotee in happy in all circumstances, you want to be like that devotee. That develops an appreciation. Yes, you appreciate that devotee so much that you develop trust in that devotee. And that trust or Shraddha is so important at the beginning stages. And throughout, of course, but to initiate the process, I mean. Shraddha is an important component throughout. But to initiate this path of bhakti, Shraddha is the first step. So that is why when we hear these interactions of Krishna and his devotees, what happens is we develop a lot of appreciation for both, especially the devotees. We look at that and we feel that so nice. I want to be so happy like them. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other question or any comment anyone wants to make?
Definitely, it has fulfilled anything whichever we might have missed from Prabhuji's deep dive classes and several other devotees summary classes. And there are some few points we learned, especially the 4.35. We were just glanced at little passively and focused on the latter verses like boat and all those things. But yeah, this was so nice. Thank you so much, Mataji, for your time.
Thank you very much, Mataji. really appreciate the time you gave. We were expecting that we'll be able to summarize it in one class, but you have to be pulled for 2 classes. So thank you, and you had to really reschedule your other classes. Thanks. So we are really thankful to you, and look forward, like in future also, we can have you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.